Alright everybody, welcome to another developer livecast here on the Game Wisdom channel. I am of course Josh Placer, and we have another great one for you tonight. We're going to be talking with the co-founder of Dekker Studios. They specialize in making FMV style adventure games. Their previous game, The Infectious Madness of Dr. Dekker, turned into a cult hit, and we spoke to him last time. But for tonight, he is back to talk about the Shapeshifting Detective, as well as his future plans. So please welcome to the cast, Tim Cowles.
Hi, hello, thanks Josh.
Hey Tim, it's great to talk to you again. How are you doing?
Yeah, we're good. We're coming off the back of Shapeshifting into the next one now, so we have a little bit of time to kind of unwind and get those new ideas flowing.
Great. And for people watching us now, whether it's live or recorded, we did, like I said, we did a cast previously with I think Tim and I think Linda was on as well, and we talked about the Shapeshifting Detective. I'll include a link to that in the description below for the recorded folks. But it's been a few months, I think, since we last spoke, and it's great to have you back on. And I know we got a lot to talk about here today. And for the people watching, if you have any questions for Tim about either Dekker, Shapeshifting Detective, or just FMV, let us know in the comments. But to get things going, for people watching us who may not have caught our previous cast, could you go over very briefly about what Dekker is and what do you guys do with Shapeshifting and Dekker?
Yeah, well, just very briefly, we started up 15 years ago, and we made traditional murder mystery box games then. And this is relevant because as we skip forward 10 years or so, we then started creating murder mystery box games that have randomized murderers in. And so the things that we learned in the kind of box games of traditional world, we brought forward into our first ever video game, which is The Infectious Madness of Dr. Dekker FMV. That has the randomized murder in it, and again, something we'd learned from all those years of writing the murder mysteries. Infectious Madness of Dr. Dekker, you play the psychiatrist, and there's 6 patients, and one of them basically killed the previous doctor. You take over from him, and then on the back of that, after picking up the Guinness World Record for the longest amount of videos in the FMV game, which we're pretty happy to get, because it felt like a lot when we were doing it, and apparently it was. We then went on to the Shapeshifting Detective, which really, it's not the opposite of Dekker, but in terms of mechanics and gameplay and kind of, I guess, accessibility, it could be seen as an opposite of Dekker. And that was released in November on kind of all platforms. And it's done pretty well. It's done as good as Dekker, I'd say. So, in that one, you play a detective that can shapeshift into the suspects, and then you get to talk to them, and you get to listen to kind of behind the scenes stuff that you wouldn't normally hear, just as the detective questioning a suspect. Because obviously they're going to keep their secrets, but if you shapeshift into, say, their friend, and you go and talk to them, they're going to reveal other things. So that's it in brief.
Now, you mentioned there, Tim, that you originally worked on those kind of murder mystery box kind of games before moving into video games with Dekker. And one thing I was curious about was, as you said, you made that transition from a standard murder mystery to having a randomized killer. And that was kind of one of the major draws of Dekker and Shapeshifting. So, I guess, what was, how did you approach, coming up with that formula for your games or for your general style?
Well, for the box games, we wanted to make something that was easy for the host. So customers buying box murder mystery games, normally their first concern is how many of their friends are going to turn up, and that kind of limits their options. Then they start looking at themes, if they've got 8 players or 10 players. But then if people dropped out or more people wanted to come, it was impossible. Basically, the games themselves were pretty much for 8 players, and that was it. So that was the driving force behind trying to make it flexible. From that point, it was almost algebraic. I don't want to make it sound too programmatic, but because I'm obviously a programmer of 20 odd years as well, I just brought some of that into how we could work with a random murderer, and essentially we did our best to give the same experience you'd have with a fixed murderer in those box games, and try and replicate that with the random killer. So essentially, it means that the storylines for the box games, at least, are within the characters themselves, and the clues which give away or frame them or otherwise set them free are in their own character sheets. That's how it works in the box games, because obviously they're printed and there's nothing we can do about that. Slightly different for the FMV games because it's programmatic, so we can have all kinds of flags and switches that go off in the FMV games. But for the box games, essentially, at the beginning whether you're the killer or not, because there's a blind draw of cards, so people know whether they're innocent or guilty. And in the character sheet itself, they have different responses if they're innocent or guilty to the same question. So, for instance, it might be, "What were you doing last night?" And if you're innocent, you were at the bar, and if you're guilty, you were at the the pool house. And that's kind of how it worked for those. And we managed. It was quite easy then. Once we'd released, I think we'd released 5 or 6 of those Flexi Party games before we even started looking at Dekker. So it was pretty easy to roll that mechanic into it. There's a lot of debate around whether flexible murderers means that the story is weak, that it can weaken the story. And in a way, if you can't interleave the stories, it's obviously easier to do with a video game because programmatically you can flag variables and switch things. But I'd say that maybe I'll give you 95% of the story instead of 100, but it's still pretty good.
Yeah, and I think that's a very interesting point there about the fact that it is meant to be replayable, which kind of goes against, the general nature of a regular adventure game or regular murder mystery. By the fact, as you said, usually the killer is fixed. Somebody gets the card, or if it's a story, every time you play, that same person's going to be the murderer. And from, I guess, a general writing perspective, I'm pretty sure I asked this when we last spoke, but to bring it back for this cast, what kind, is there any interesting challenges when it comes to writing the story for these games, with the knowledge that the killer is going to be different with each playthrough?
A lot of the time, originally for Dekker, our original concern was that it just couldn't be easily spoiled. So it wasn't one killer, and people could then spoil it quickly for anyone else who wanted to play. So in terms of the challenges of making it all different, one of the things that makes it easy is if the killer has similar kind of ways of killing the victim. So you would at the beginning you'd decide that they were strangled or shot or whatever it is, and then probably everyone would have to do that in the same way or have access to the weapon. Do you see what I mean? So you wouldn't make it too complicated for yourself in terms of the actual murder. Motives obviously can be different, and the opportunity it means motive, opportunity, the usual stuff, but they would be different. And they could be a lot different. And when you look at things like Dekker, which I don't know whether I should spoil it or not, but there's a lot of different ways of getting at Dekker, depending on which character you are. A lot of different motives, but they all kind of end up with the old paper spike in the heart. So from that point of view, we found the murder mystery and the flexible part of it very, very easy, because it's just what we do. That's like our day job. We go to work, oh my god, I've got to write another character, for another murder mystery game. That is our day job. So that was really easy. But for the FMV games, and in particular the branching, and certainly with Shapeshift, it's a different challenge entirely. Interactive fiction is obviously a different writing challenge entirely. Aside from the, I think having random killers probably makes it a complete brain bender for people coming into it if they're not used to writing interactive fiction as well. So I mean, we were lucky because we knew we were comfortable with that, and the interactive kind of the branching narratives, and the same for Dekker. A lot of the branching narratives in Dekker were put in at the end, and a lot of the branching narratives in Shapeshift were designed from the beginning.
So, like, with that transition from Dekker to shapeshifting, was that kind of due to, like, your own growth or understanding of this design, kind of applying, like, a new style with shapeshifting?
I think it was... We'd had a lot of feedback from Dekker about the keyboard entry, which we still stand by the keyboard entry. We're not saying the past was brilliant, but we think the actual mechanic there of typing something and getting a video back as if you're in a conversation, we still love the idea. Maybe it wasn't executed as well as it could have been for some people, and weirdly enough, people's experience with it varied. Some people it was a right turn off and they just run away. Others, it really worked for them. You know, we could watch playthroughs and people were just getting it and clicking, and they were getting a lot more out of that keyword system. So, as you probably know, we then introduced all of the drop-down hints and things like that to make it ready for console. And then Wales Interactive took on the publishing for the console and pushed it out so that you could use a joystick with it, basically. So, because of that, we wanted to make the interface simpler. And Wales had already talked to us about games like Late Shift, which interactive movies, some people would say, and that was looking at the interface there. We were kind of thinking we felt it needed to be branching, definitely, because the interface was I'm not going to say it wasn't complicated, but the interface was pretty easy. So for a gamer, in terms of a challenge to a gamer, you had to start thinking of other things that were going to shape-shifting obviously being one of them, but which we're going to draw them in a little bit and give them something interesting to do. So all the branching in Shapeshift is just required to make it more interesting. It wasn't necessarily that we were turning it up a notch and we were kind of applying things that we'd learned in Dekker, because it was completely different. I mean, in Dekker was you could almost say it was topic based in Dekker, because you had a keyword and you had a video response. Shapeshift, Shapeshift was rewritten about 4 times. It's actually rewritten about 4 times, and the first time was topic based, and it was awful because you went round, you asked everybody the same question, and you got near enough the same answer from a lot of them. So and then you could shapeshift, and it extrapolated that out by the amount of conversation you could have then. So you'd end up with 49 conversations about did the victim wear shoes? Not exciting stuff, is it, when you're shapeshifting, you've got that many conversations you can have. So we quickly realised we couldn't do that same kind of Dekker topic-based thing for Shapeshift, mainly due to the amount of people you could change into. So I think probably if you were going to do a FMV where you were walking around talking to people and you weren't going to shapeshift into anybody else, you certainly could do it topic based, and I've probably almost given the mechanics for contradiction there. Yeah, because essentially contradiction is topic based. You walk around, you ask people the same question by clicking on the topic, and then you get the video response. And I love contradiction as well, and lots of people do. So it's a really good FMV game. And in terms of not needing to write a branching story to keep it, considering how much contradiction is loved, what a good game it is, and everything else, considering it's not even branching, Tim Follin's got a lot of mileage out of the way he did that. Whereas for Shapeshift, one of the things that took the most amount of time was actually the writing, because of all the branching.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Tim, about the branching with the narrative, because that was going to be my next question for you. Like, with regards, as you said, with Dr. Dekker, it was more about these like the verbs and the topics. I put a verb in, I get a response, that kind of thing. But with shapeshifting, as you said, you have those permutations. You have to write not just for one specific track, but you have to write their responses for what character you're playing as, which character is the murderer. You have to adjust for that as well. What choices you've made by talking to people. And that, I think, is a lot more, and that obviously it takes a lot more time and work to do. And it goes, I think, back to that article that I wrote about the Black Mirror Bandersnatch, and just about choices in adventure games as well. That the more choice you try to give to the player, obviously means a lot more work and a lot more of those permutations. And when it came to shapeshifting, I guess, and I'm from like a writing perspective, how did you sit down, try to sort of map out, exactly how many lines, or how many, branches on a tree to come up with for that game?
Shapeshift, I'm not going to say it wasn't hard. it did take a long time for us to write, and also it had all those kind of major rewrites from the beginning up to the end. If you actually, in my head, it's on rails at the beginning and it's on rails at the end, and I'd say that games like Late Shift are on rails. Because as the story progresses, you're given a choice. You're given a fairly binary choice a lot of the time, and that will take you to a different scenario, a different scene. But there's not many ways that you can double back on yourself and go to the same scene again without playing the game through again. So games where your trajectory is forward the whole time, I see those as on rails. And in Shapeshift, the very beginning is on rails. So as you're navigating the first few minutes of it, it's on rails. Then it goes, what I'd say is kind of more open world, because you then get to visit anyone in any order and shapeshift into anybody and visit them in any order. So from that point of view, we've got a nice bit of kind of like adventure mechanic. At least we saw it that way. Some people probably got irritated that they were shifting and there was nothing to be seen and just thought it was annoying. But that was like one of our kind of tips of the hat to adventure gamers, giving them something to do, because the part of the puzzle there was, who should I shift into and go and talk to? What information should I get? So that middle bit, there's a big middle bit like that, and then the very rail as well. So the whole part where you're picking how you're going to save the final potential victim, what happens to them, we did a lot of branching there. For instance, with Ellis, there's 8 different endings just for Ellis, and that isn't the ending of the game. That's just what happens to her. But so those were all planned out beforehand. A lot of the other branching took place as we were writing the narrative. So there was like major branching points where we knew that we wanted the story to go in one of these ways. For instance, when you've got a mystery game, one ending is you catch the killer, the other one is that you don't. There's not really there's not many grey areas for that. And also in terms of potential victims, they either live or they die. So some of the branches obviously easily worked out for you. Other things we did, we put values into conversation trees, so that basically at the end, during the end sequence, some of the people in the town in August, they can form romantic bonds with you, and you might be able to end up hitting it off, shall I say, with some of those characters at the end of the game. And again, a bit like Dekker, where we had the insanity mechanic and we were kind of working out how naughty or nice you were to them, and at the end of the game give them a different ending. In Shapeshift, we had lots of little variables that would change depending on how you responded to people in the questioning, and that would change things later on in the game, how they would respond to you later on. I mean, early on, we took that one step further, because we also thought, again, there weren't enough of these. We could have put more of these in, but it's probably very annoying for people. But I just thought it was cool, as we had these things that we called catalyst events, and essentially we would track a figure. So, for instance, have you annoyed the chief? Right? And one of the ways to shapeshift that you can annoy the chief is changing into all the other characters and repeatedly going to his office. Because you're a suspect. What are you doing going to the chief? Right. So there you can essentially annoy the chief, and the more and more you annoy the chief's likely to react. And instead of having it a kind of binary, if you send, you know, if you send one person there, this is going to happen. We just built up this kind of variable, and then when it was ready to explode, as it were, we then looked at a kind of another random assortment of ways the chief would react. So the chief might do nothing, might lock up one of the tower readers, might lock up both the tower readers. And the same thing happened with Violet as well. You could make Violet very anxious in the beginning of the game, by certain questions and talking to certain people, and she would react in a random way to it. When I say random, not as in, you know, she'd do the shopping or she'd shoot a dog or she'd go flying. Not completely random like that. But we were thinking, if you were worried that somebody thought you were guilty, what would you do? Yeah. So Violet's responses to those include kind of, she's just going to let off some steam and she just leaves in Act 1 in one of the things. She just had enough, so she goes. She comes back, but she's going to go because she just doesn't want to deal with it anymore. Another one of her responses is talking to the chief, you know, and giving him an earful about what's going on in town. So they make sense, but we didn't want it completely kind of cut and dry. And then when we got to choosing the achievements, we thought, you know, we can't really put achievements against specific endings there, but maybe we can have an achievement for upsetting the chief, yeah, or upsetting Violet. But we couldn't say you get an achievement if both tower readers get locked up, because that was a random chance that would happen after you'd upset the chief. So I can't remember what your original question was there, but I think I've I hope I've covered it.
All right. Yeah, like, again, there's so many ways you can go about this, and again, like, it's hard to kind of like talk about specific examples because we'll be spoiling either Dekker or shapeshifting.
Yeah, that's right. From round 1 I was talking, so people should, you know, don't worry. I wasn't giving away, you know, end game. That was right up in the first hour. But yeah.
I guess one thing, like going back to what you said about switching from the text parser in Dekker to more of this, again, like just choosing a topic in shapeshifting. Do you think you'll go back to a text parser for whatever your next game may be?
I think that we'd like to do something in between, possibly. So we've got a couple of the stories that we want to take forward, and we've got a couple of different game systems we want to take forward. So we're just trying to work out what will be most fun and what will be most fun for us to develop. But for instance, one of the things that's been kind of floated is the shapeshift style multiple choice system with a text input box for extras. Yeah, and that actually came up at the end of Dekker when we were trying to work out how to improve Dekker, how we could make it easier for people to play, but still give a lot of meat for people who wanted to find it. So that would be an exact split between those two. Would be to have multiple choice and then have the text input system. We did immediately think that we were going to go and just completely reuse the shapeshift UI basically again. When we were coming off the back of that, we thought that's exactly what we'd do for the next one. But I have a few issues with it. I have a few issues with it because the next thing we're talking about doing is much more linear. It's much more on rails. So it doesn't lend itself to the simplicity of the shapeshift engine, which allowed you this massive mid-game section where the complications involved who you were shifting into. and who you were visiting. Essentially, we saw the people that you could shift into, those targets, as your inventory items. Yeah, and then so if each one of those inventory items, then you try each one on the lock to see which one works. Yeah, it's a weird way of looking at it, but essentially, that it gave you that flexibility in those choices. So that's kind of we could accept the interface being much more simplified because we were giving you a lot of to do. In the next one, I think the story is going to get a bit darker. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot more. The story's definitely going to be better. And I'm not saying that Shapeshift was bad. Shapeshift had issues in as much as the story was always almost going to be wide instead of deep, because you'd shift into lots of targets and it'd be the same time in the day or whatever. So whilst we managed to reveal lots of different multiple stories because you could shift into people and you'd find out things you wouldn't necessarily find out as a detective, in that way we could get deeper. But it was harder because you obviously only have so much video you want to shoot, which was 5 hours, just over 5 hours again for Shapeshift. And this time, instead of just being dialogue between you as the main character and each of the suspects, we have to fit in all the shape-shifting dialogue as well. So quite a lot of that gets taken up, not with just oh hello, it's you again, but quite a lot of it gets taken up because you've got all of those relationships. If you put it into like a football fixtures chart, there'd be quite a lot of matches there. It's not just one team plays the other six or 11 as the case may be. So there were a lot of conversations to fill, so it used up the video and the story really quickly. So the next time round we want to kind of aim for the same kind of length, but it will be much more focused, give you a much bigger story. So for that reason, I'm not sure we will exactly use that. And the other thing is we get bored really easily. we're like kids creativity wise. So we and again with like the murder mystery games where we put the multiplayer kind of aspect in, we love innovating stuff, or at least toying with it, changing things, sticking something else in. Like we've got the delete button in Shapeshift as well.
And that was very interesting. It allowed you to essentially have a non-response, because we're seeing that a lot more in adventure games over these past few years. So allow the player to answer a question by not answering it. Instead of saying yes, no, you just say nothing.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, watching people play the game and use that interface, it's just awesome. Like they've hit a speed bump when a delete comes up. Because they've got to think about it, and it's like a game of cat and mouse. Why have we put it there? if I delete it, am I going to get a better? Am I going to get more stuff, or am I just going to lose what was there and they've played with it? So it was a bit of like a gamble mechanic for FMV fan. But again, I haven't seen it done in FMV before. The delete button on those things. And it felt like a cool thing to put in. And I think most people enjoyed the fact that it made them think at certain points instead of just button mashing through to the end.
Well, I know I was reading your forums. I think it confused a few people at like the very beginning of the game when you had to do it for the first time. When the guy says you have to learn to keep your mouth shut. It's a very cheeky tutorial, really, but it is right up front. It does hit you in the face right up front, but I'm not sure how many people said the game's broken. I think I saw a couple of them. The game's broken, I can't progress. But yeah, there was a bit of design friction with the old delete button there, but I definitely wanted it to be in. Linda and I both did. We both wanted to be there because we just thought it was cool, and it's not supposed to be a gimmick, as in they're there because we think that they add to the fun or they make it more interesting.
we don't do things for gimmicks. We're old time FMV fans ourselves. Hence Chris Jones, Tex Murphy voiceover, and all this stuff. It was awesome to get in it. So we just want to try and keep people happy and excited and interested when they're playing it.
Mm-hmm. And now you mentioned a few minutes ago, Tim, that with the shapeshifting, it came to about 5 hours of recording. Did you say that was about the same amount of time for Dekker, or was it different?
Dekker was just over 7 hours.
Okay.
So Dekker was longer, and you can see what I mean about the story potentially, because Dekker had 6 characters and 1 detective, as it were, or psychiatrist, whereas Shapeshift had going on for 9 questionable suspects, and you could shift into all of them.
Yeah. And you said that adds a lot more work in terms of the production side of things.
Relatively speaking, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of it still was somebody sat on a couch somewhere. So and again, you've got to think about the budget and everything else when you're doing it. But it potentially made it slightly harder for the actors than Dekker. I mean, Dekker was hard enough, portraying the kind of horror believably that was going on, or potentially going on, depending on what you thought of Dekker. But the Shapeshift, they had to suddenly change from talking to the detective to talking to their best friend, or talking to somebody they didn't like, and all this stuff. So I think from their point of view, it was harder. It was more production days for us.
Yeah, and
the budget was bigger than Dekker, so we had a bit more to play with.
Now, with the production side of things, I'm pretty sure I asked this question of you when we were on last time, but when it came to actually starting to film and get people together, do you wait until the entire script is done, or do you start doing that as you're kind of finishing things off in the writing stage?
Yeah, well, we'd like to do that thing you just said and have the script finished. But both times, and we really don't want to do it this next time, but both times the script was I'd say 80-90% finished before we started casting. And to be fair, one of the reasons I'm saying that is because it had a 4th rewrite between starting casting and finishing. So we overhauled it again, the systems again. If we'd have shipped with the script that was 2 weeks younger, the game would have been a lot more horrible, I can tell you. So I mean, the last revisions really kind of helped with it. But it does mean that you can, once the benefit of doing that is once you've done the casting as well, you can tailor some of the responses to the cast member.
Yeah.
When you've seen their audition, you've got a feel for their delivery thing, so it can help.
I guess that actually gives me 2 questions I want to ask you, Tim. The first thing about bringing in the actors to do to audition for the various roles. Do they pick the roles, or do you kind of assign them roles based on their audition? When we put the casting call out on lots of different networks, which is basically just a write-up of what the game is and what the roles are, and the actors themselves will apply. And depending on which network it is, they'll either apply for a specific role. I mean, most of them allow them to apply for a specific role out of a kind of production. So they'll already be aiming at the person they want to be, and or they can supply audition footage at the same time. So we can watch people auditioning for the roles straight away, and then get back to people who we're interested in. But this time for Shapeshift, Ashlyn, we got Ashlyn involved without audition. She's the only person who didn't actually do an audition for Shapeshift. Just because she was so great in Dekker, and it was good to get her in early and start writing a new character, a new non-Marianne. As terrifying as that was as well, trying to break the role of Mariana and make sure that it was something different enough. And obviously Ashley had to portray all that as well. We don't want people to think either A, we'd broken Mariana, or B, we'd just extended her.
So that was quite an interesting one from all parties involved there. But everybody else auditioned. A few of them actually, including some of the Contradiction guys and girls, they auditioned over Skype. But almost everybody else actually sent in video auditions. And this time it was just Leah, I think. Yeah, Leah, who Leah plays Monroe in the game. We got her to do another video or two, because we essentially normally we see it off the audition video and we're happy with what we see and we can just cast just straight off those audition videos, or we'll ask people to do audition videos if I haven't supplied them already, and occasionally we'll get a follow-up video done in a different style, or however we could see the talent but just not the direction we wanted. So we'll ask for another audition and it's directed differently, and see if they can respond to the direction and B, actually deliver the convincing role. But the only other person we've done that with is Ashlyn for Mariana.
Okay.
Because Ashlyn originally applied for the role of Jaya.
Okay.
So we saw the talent in a show role and thought, okay, but yeah, I think you could make a good Mariana. So.
And like I said when we last spoke, like, do these podcasts count as auditions for one of your things, Tim? Like, can I get on one in the future?
Yeah, I'm storing all this now. Yeah, I've got
Nice.
your accent and everything. Yeah, I can
just be like Murm Victim 3. Like, that can just be me, like, laying there. We can just, like, take a picture of me just, like, laying on a bed and you can put that in.
You can probably just, Photoshop yourself in. It's
Yeah,
fine.
perfect. Photoshop me, like, various murder scenes, like, just, like, laying there, and that'll be my role.
We did. I mean, we had voiceovers in the last one. In Shapeshift, we had a lot of people do voiceovers for them, and again, they were people that we'd met because of Dekker, mainly. So I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do for the next one. Whether we're going to open it up like that again, I'm not sure. It was lovely to do. But there were a lot of contracts flying around.
Oh, yeah.
And just to, not because anyone's a diva, but just we need to keep it legal, because we're obviously we're delivering a product to Wales to publish, so we need to have all the rights to everything, and it's dog basically. And so there was a lot of kind of management that went in that you don't normally get with internal production.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I know, like, there's, like, a recent issue, like, with the video game My Time at Portia, that they were running into trouble not paying their voice actors, and that stuff can come back to bite you. As you said, like, when you're dealing with a lot of outside people coming in, it can get very confusing and very tricky to manage everybody.
Yeah, and again, I mean, yeah, I'm not going to say anything more. I mean, some of the I think just because you've got all these other people involved, even the writers who got who we put out for and said, do you want to write for an FMV game? Because 5 of the stories in the game were again created by external writers, and we asked for submissions for what could be read out on Radio August, and again, it was lovely to get people in the game. But I do recall, and I genuinely don't remember who it was, but it was just I think he was a bit worried that we were potentially going to release a short story collection novel with these stories in, and we're here thinking we'll be lucky if we get this FMV done. That'll knock out somebody's short story that we collection from the 5 that we've had in. So it's just generally you have to deal with a lot of people and set a lot of people's minds at rest that it's all going to be fine, and especially people, when you start reaching out that far, and what I mean is we were possibly getting people who were writing for it. Maybe some of them weren't video gamers or even understood what was going on. Yeah, only that it was another writing opportunity and they could get their writing out there, or voiceover or whatever. But perhaps not that we were, that we were very dedicated to doing video games, weren't in the book publishing industry. I mean, as far as I know, I mean, I do. That's the one thing that I'm lucky with, is that my parents did send me off to and managed to pay to keep me at university to study law. So we don't have a legal team or anything. We just have me and a copy of Google Docs, hoping for the best. There's nothing in that contract that says that we can publish their work in a book, and publish it as something else. But it's just the docs, some of those legal docs that we issue do look pretty fierce. And if you look at, not in terms of you must pay for our mortgage or anything, but in terms of everything you do in front of camera is ours and we can do whatever we want with it, for example. Yeah? Because you can't have a situation where you've used something you shouldn't.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of these agreements in performance and things like that, they can be pretty scary looking in terms of licensing agreements to license other people's works.
Yeah, definitely. Like with my first book, I mean with the second book I'm writing right now, I had to read, like, for the first time, one of those contracts, and I went through that thing like for like a good month. Like for the first one, I just kept rereading that contract again and again to like make sure, like, what the hell am I signing here?
What does firstborn mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Stuff like that. Yeah, and I think it is kind of fairly standard stuff, and I guess it obviously can look intimidating, but the intention of those documents is really, to cover the publisher.
Oh, yeah.
Really, to make sure that you can't come back after them. But they're legal documents. People can come after anyone for anything.
That's
so, legal doc or not, I mean, I don't want to say it's worth the paper it's written on, because they're obviously contracts, but again, if you put the colon in the wrong place, it's all over. Who knows? But again, the intention's there. So what I'm saying is, on top of the management, they're obviously, and I said about the contracts flying around, so there was actually quite a lot of extra stuff to deal with. On top of doing what you would normally do for a video game that you were doing in house, and just and hiring people in to do stuff, so or film production. So yeah, I didn't hate it, and I love everybody who's been in it. It's really great that we've got all these people in it. And again, much as I hold up, we've got the Guinness World Record certificate in a frame on the wall so that I can look at it every day. I kind of feel the same way about people like Tex Murphy in the game. We wrote his script on our wedding anniversary because we had a really small window to get a script in to him to actually do a VO for. So that's how we spent our wedding anniversary night. But
that's a great gift right there.
Totally worth it. Yeah, exactly. I got you for a wedding anniversary was Tex Murphy to read out your story. Yay. So yeah, I mean, and also obviously working with all these other people means that everybody's got a vested interest in the project. They kind of help out with promoting it. So, quite a few of them have and follow, and they would have done anyway, I'm sure, but it's just, in a way, it felt to us like we were trying to spread the glory around, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Because normally it's just us two and we get to pick whoever's in it and that's it. And you need to audition, it's the actors and that. So we kind of wanted, look, how could we share some of the right props, not responsibility, because we were happy to write it all. And obviously we don't want to outsource too much, because there is a chance that what we do is good. So there's always an outside worry that people actually want us to write. No, I mean, obviously most of it, 99% of it is us. But there's 5 stories in there came in from external writers, and also there's actually a couple that my brother did in there as well for Radio August.
Nice.
So, but yeah, it was a nice way to kind of share the glory that is being released in a video game. 'Cause you can't knock them out every month, can you? Really, they take a bit of work.
Yeah.
So, so I'm not saying that. I mean, thousands of video games are probably being released as we speak, but it's it's nice to have the opportunity to be in one, and from our point of view, to have the opportunity to be able to get people in one.
Yeah, like with my book, I'm actually offering people who donate a certain amount of money to getting knowledge in my second book. So I figure, again, get immortalized in a game design book. That can be somebody's lifelong dream. You never know, right?
Yeah, no, well, that's absolutely true. You know, having yourself published in things as well. I did remember, and this is not the same at all, I've got to tell you, but many years ago, when I think I was about 25, I was sent like this thing in the post that said that I was in, and I have this book. Do I have it, or did I throw it away? No, maybe I threw it away. Oh my god! I had a book that said something. It was something like, you know, the top young entrepreneurs of 1802 or wherever it was when I was 25, but a long time ago. But it was a book that was just supposed to be a list of the greatest young entrepreneurs of our time. And I had to pay 25 quid for a copy or whatever it was, and I was like, all right, of course, yeah. I want to be in a book. It says I'm, one of the best young entrepreneurs of the time, and I got it. And obviously, it's like one of these Reader's Digest bound ones with about 100,000 names. Yeah, so it was literally like a telephone directory of names where they're obviously taking advantage of our complete narcissism to pay for a copy of the book. But I mean, that was obviously years and years ago, but it still happens today. Post Dekker, I haven't actually had it with Shapeshift, but post Dekker, I got a lot of it from a lot of people telling me I'd won a lot of awards. Ooh. And I just needed to pay.
Yeah, right.
It's like, yeah, no, I did that. Did that when I was younger. Yeah, I'm not doing that again.
And now, one question I have for you, Tim, going back to something you said a few minutes ago regarding the rewrites to shapeshifting. Obviously with shapeshifting or with these FMV style games, there's a lot of, I guess, plates in the air or plates spinning in the air as you're working on them. Like, when you have to rewrite, like, something like with shapeshifting, like, how much does that really change in terms of, like, the design or even just the structure of the game?
It depends. I guess it depends. It depends what rewrite we're talking about. But there are 4 rewrites in Shapeshift. There's obviously the first one, which was the first draft, which had all of the topic-based stuff in, and then we quickly realised that was going to be rubbish. So the next draft actually knocked out probably half the content or more, because they were obviously all responses to the same things. So if you play the game now, you'll notice that some of the characters have some similar questions, but there's some questions in Murder Mystery that it's pretty tough to get away from, like where were you at the time of the murder. So there's not much we can do about those. But yeah, so that was what began. We thought it would be really easy because we went, we've got all these keywords, we'll just put responses in for all these people, and it'll be really simple. And we churned it out pretty quickly. But then like I said, when we realised it was really dull, we then had to go and add all these extra things in. So that was kind of rewrite 2. Rewrite 3, we decided that it wasn't a good idea having a massively open world. And what I mean by that is we decided there was going to be no act structure after Dekker. We thought you could just access it all again from the so instead of having any kind of progression that you could see in game, that you've moved from 1 hour to the next, we started off with a completely open structure, so that in essence there was no moving forward just after you'd collated enough of the key variables that we'd got scattered around the place, that it would kind of move on to the next tranche of dialogue automatically. But that was all coded with variables in ink, because we use ink as the underlying language to write the interactive fiction. So that was all in there, and at some point we went, this is just it's there's loads, and it's really tough to understand from a writing perspective, because you just got this massive chunk of dialogue with 100 variables on it, 100 variable tests, which, whilst the variables were named to give us at least a chance of knowing what that meant, it just didn't. It wasn't easy to see how much content there would be at different places in the game. So that was a complete game design restructure then, when we put in the act system. And then because of that, we realized that we didn't want to just have originally I think we were going to film some weird kind of black and white adverts, 50s style adverts to stick in there at each act break. And then we thought, and these are the ones which have the colour swells in the end, but we thought we should collect everything together in the radio broadcast that goes on underneath. So then we wrote those radio broadcasts for each of the acts. So that was new stuff that went in, and that obviously took a long time. That rewrite 3, and then rewrite 4. That was probably only 20%, 25%, and that involved stripping out some of the chaff where we still hated it, where we thought, we can't, we don't want to talk about that. That's not good content. And then replacing it with some cool weird stuff. It got cooler and weirder. So you only get the chance to put that stuff in when the foundation's there.
Yeah. But it's interesting what you just said there about switching from it being just completely open to then having that structure of, again, the questions and dialogues being locked to those specific acts.
Yes. Yeah. So then the acts would they would have a chunk of different responses, so we knew how far the story was going to be along at any point. I mean, it was variable before, but in terms of actual structure in the ink files, even it was, you couldn't see because the variables were just against a whole massive list of questions. So in this way, we could split it into what is essentially mainly 5 acts, because there are kind of more checkpoints than that, but that's to do with the rail system at the front and the end. Mm-hmm. But kind of the open worldy bit is mainly 5 acts, where you can go around and talk to anybody and be anybody. And also it meant that instead of, we ended up with like a string of 6 variables, which meant that you were in Act 3 and you'd said this, done that, and been there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that got kind of a bit easier then, because we've got a bit of dialogue in Act 3 and it's only got 1 variable in, or 2. Yeah. Because you have to keep compounding them over and over until you've just got a massive load of variables. So I mean, bad design choice, obviously, but it's an iterative process, and I've coded like that all my life as well. There's 2 types of code. Well, there's many types of coders, but the 2 main types of coder I know is there's the person that kind of walks around, thinks, has a coffee, writes 5 lines of code, bang, it's brilliant. And there's the other person that sits there with like a pickaxe and just hacks at it for that same amount of time and finally gets there. That's me. I'm definitely a hacker.
There we go.
But it works. Either way works.
Mm-hmm. But making that switch in terms of, I guess, compartmentalizing the dial and the choice into the act structure, like, do you think that will be like kind of your preference going forward with future games, or will you try like that open-ended element but in another one?
I don't know. I wouldn't ever say that we'll stick to do anything, because like I said, I think we want to change what we do most of the time. But I think certainly it helped us. It did help us in the end with Shapeshift. I think one of the reasons that we started without the act structure was, again, from Dekker. It was an overhang from Dekker, where basically for us, what we kind of I mean, again, I know we shouldn't probably be talking that much about Dekker, but the whole traffic light system was a bit of a disaster for us. And it came in after a beta test, and there was like 100 of our beta testers, and to give people feedback on where they were with the questioning. But as it happened, if we could do it again, we would either A, remove it like them, or we would change it so that going red was actually orange, or going green was orange, sorry. Mm-hmm. So we got some negative feedback because people said there are a lot of non sequiturs, basically. Going into green with Dekker, and we never really intended for people to get all the way there. They were just like bonus Easter eggs that you could find, but because we implemented the traffic light system the way we had, it meant that people wanted to search all the videos, and that had a knock-on effect then for whether they wanted to go forward to the next act. So I think we were just hating the act structure because of that, because in our heads we tied it all to the traffic lights.
Yeah, and I remember from our previous cast we talked about that, and how for the game we're looking at that title, they're going to want to get 100%, and they think that that's a major part of the design. Like, you're supposed to get everything, and
yes,
when that happens, it can become very frustrating if you didn't intend it to be that way. Like, there are games out there where you can get through the game maybe doing 60 to 70% of the stuff. But if you present it to the player, they think that there's more to it than that, and it's like, oh, all I did was just learn that, the person likes peanut butter on their toast instead of jelly. Great. Yeah. I just spent 5 hours typing in stuff for that.
Yeah, and exactly, and it wasn't actually a requirement to go green, and we did, and again we put help text in and videos and things, and people would skip them. And even the intro video. So, and I don't direct any of that at the people that play the game. They're all lovely and they bought our game, and I thank them greatly. It's our fault for not telling them about it. We're, even with the murder mystery store and our murder mystery games, whenever there's kind of problems with things, and if we get lots of people saying, how do we do this, or it's our fault for not telling them. For making it clear enough. So. I guess that we are FMV gamers, so we understand that everybody wants to get all the videos, and we probably should have thought a bit more about that with the traffic light system. But it just, I don't think we thought that the other things in place, like the help videos and stuff, might kind of negate some of that. But again, and we're the same. I don't know what I was playing the other day. I was playing Banished, a game called Banished on Steam. I thought I'd have a look at that. It's been in my library for ages, and it's like a micromanagement type thing where you build a village up. Am I going to look at the help? No,
of course
not. Why would I do that? Yeah, so I am banging my head against the desk because they're all dying and I haven't got enough food. And eventually I'll retreat and I'll have a look at a tutorial. The in-game tutorial won't me to see. But so we design from a state of perfection. we think everything's going to be perfectly the way we think it's going to be, and it obviously is.
Yeah, I need to get back to Banish at some point too. I played it and again failed. Like, didn't even bother with a tutorial and just died constantly. Like, everybody just died in that game very fast. Yeah. No, I mean, I've got about 90 odd villagers now. I'm really happy that I've managed to get but I'm still looking at it thinking, I can't see you sustaining it for much longer, guys. Yeah, you're all done. Yeah. Leave now. Get out.
We're going to run out of something soon. I think at some point, I don't know if it's coded specifically like this, but I'd sent everyone down the mine to get coal, to get iron, and they broke iron picks at the same rate they got iron. So it was like a negative transaction. I was trying to get iron to make more tools, but they break the tools quicker than they get the iron. I was there going, okay, how does this work then?
Something's not right here.
Yeah, what am I doing? But I think at the end I just made them better picks and then sent them all to school. And then the rate at which they got, they didn't break the picks because they were stronger and they could get iron quicker. But again, I guess, but that's the fun of gaming, isn't it? Working out how to kind of beat these systems. But yeah, it's funny, I put the school in and half the people disappeared. I was like, what have they done? we're all going to die. We're not going to be able to farm enough food. And they're all sat in school that I just built. I was like, okay. Probably not the wisest decision I made. Hold on, everyone. Winter's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Anyway, sorry. Yeah, we weren't supposed to be talking about Banished.
No.
Good game if they're out there. Yeah.
Let me see. In terms of a quick time check, we are just over an hour in. So, I'm sure we could probably keep going for a few hours. Everybody's going to enjoy that. But I figure we'll probably... Are you fine going to maybe like an hour 20, hour 30, Tim?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Let me see.
Yeah.
And for people watching us who came in late, if you have any questions for Tim regarding FMV style games, let us know in the comments. But
both of you, and yeah, hello, Mum.
And we actually got a few more people. They came in late there. I think we're up to like 5 or 6 right now, though maybe like a few left as I turned away from the dashboard.
Thank you all for coming, whoever you are.
Yep. But one thing that I wanted to ask you regarding shapeshifting, and then we'll probably move on. I have a few other topics, and we'll talk about your upcoming project as well to wrap up the cast on. But with shapeshifting, again, like coming up with the various endings and just, I guess, trying to manage people like that. I know we talked about this last time with Dekker, but in terms of, I guess, guiding the various actors in terms of their roles, like, do you do anything like different or unique in terms of saying, okay, this time I want you to give it and you're the killer, or this time I want you to say it, but let's say you're angry at the person from a previous event? Like, is that stuff like factored in when you go into production?
Yes. Yeah, it is. I mean, a lot of the time the actors are on the ball anyway, so they will already have read the script and they know what's coming up, and they kind of realise what the response is made for. And I think when we sent out the scripts, we possibly kept the variables in, or we kept them in the auto cue so that you could tell whether you were guilty or not. And we kept some of the variables in so that we knew what kind of response was needed. So yeah, they're definitely hopefully that comes through. Yeah, so they do, and obviously when they're the killer, they know that as well, and a lot of the time they're responding to the same question. It's branched, so you're asking the same questions. If you, as the player, you'll see the same question anyway, and then the response will switch depending on whether they're guilty or not. So they literally deliver those one after the other.
Okay. Yeah, and it's very interesting again about doing this, and for the people coming in like, yes, this is a FMV or a live action kind of style. And I was just thinking about, what was the game? Oh yeah, I was thinking about the game, like, did you ever see that game L.A. Noire by Rockstar? Yeah. I remember that big marketing plug they gave about the fact that you could like kind of read the person's face, or having like facial tells in terms of when you're talking to them. Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't, but yeah. I was rubbish at it, but because they used motion caps, didn't they, for the expressions.
Mm-hmm. Also, that would be like more, like, be something interesting to see more in video games about trying to read people and like building a mystery or adventure around that. But I can just imagine that being even more work in terms of trying to get those tells and even make sure that it doesn't come out as being, very hokey. Like every time the person lies, their right eye twitches, and that's like their little poker tell.
Yeah, because it would make it too easy, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But it's interesting that, I mean, I don't know anything about it, I haven't seen it, but Sam Barlow's next game's called Telling Lies, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I haven't heard about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's so. He obviously did hashtag War Games in between that not many people are mentioning, but he did. But his next one's Telling Lies, and before that was obviously the massively successful Her Story.
Yeah.
So maybe, like I said, I don't know anything about. Only that it's kind of the next one on from Her Story. So I'm expecting another kind of Google type interface where you get videos back. But yeah, that the Telling Lies part might mean, I don't know, that you're looking for those kind of Rockstar game expressions to see which one's telling the truth or not. A bit like it reminds me of like a Frasier episode where they're all describing Christmas,
Mm-hmm.
and like everything happened the same, but they've all got their own take on it,
Mm-hmm.
and they film it in 3 different ways, and they're all believable because they're from their point of view. So it's whether you could actually, like you say about the tales, a lot of people when they do things that are really, really bad, already write it into their heads that they didn't actually do it, or what they did was justified, or it wasn't really bad.
Mm-hmm.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of trying to put that forward as a tell and not be like a ridiculous poker face type tell, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. And another thing that'd be very fascinating to see more games that are built on that idea, like the unreliable narrator, and having the story being kind of shifted by the person who's telling it. Because I always found it to be a very interesting narrative device.
Okay, so back to the Frasier Christmas episode, yeah. Where they were I mean, that would be kind of cool. We've come up with an idea again for like a layered FMV where you basically go through it. It's designed to be played 3 times over, but each time you speak to somebody else who has a different recollection of the events. So you can play it once and still get a good story out of it, but you can play it again and get the layered seconds. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's actually in the notes as layered FMV for what it's worth. But nice. I didn't, not my copyright.
Yeah.
So if anyone wants to up, that's brilliant.
There you go. But yeah, speaking about Sam Barlow, yeah, like her story was another really great example again, like that kind of investigation side. And again, another game where people probably spend way too much time trying to unlock every video scene in it.
Which one was that? Sorry,
Her story.
Oh, her story. Yeah. I mean, I think I looked in the file system and watched the videos after I'd played it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I went and had a look through because I didn't think I'd seen everything I needed to see, but I had.
Mm-hmm.
But I just it's weird because as an indie filmmaker as well, things like I shouldn't really spoil anything, but there's certain stuff that happens on sets like makeup and hairstyles and things like that, and maybe sometimes they're off, and maybe that just means that it's a low budget indie film. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah.
that was the vibe I got as I was playing it, and I didn't really pick up that it was meant to indicate what it indicated, or like I was happy that it could indicate that, but also I was like, nah, that's just
Mm-hmm.
that's makeup department's fault.
Yeah, let's not. We won't spoil that here. Well,
no, I don't want to spoil it though.
Like just when we do these live shows, whenever we have like mistakes or weird thing happens, that was all part of the act, folks. We never made any mistakes here when we do a live stream.
Nobody was hurt.
Exactly. And Jan Schvick, who came in for Dr. Dekker and Shapeshifting, it is a randomized killer at the end, so it's not always a set outcome when you play.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Now, I guess transitioning to some other topics, one thing I wanted to ask you about, Tim, again, with your background and expertise with like FMV and like the whole murder mystery kind of thing, what kind of got us back talking was that episode of Black Mirror, Bandersnatch. And I want to get your thoughts on that as a game developer, and especially as someone who does like this kind of FMV style. Like, what did you make of that episode?
Well, obviously the same thing that everybody's saying about it's amazingly cool that Netflix could be bothered and have put money into it, and it's come out, and we've got these kind of interactive experiences, as they call them, or what we call kind of video games, that some people call interactive films. So there's that. It's brilliant that they've done it. I think Charlie Brooker, I read an interview that he said that he normally has one breakdown writing a Black Mirror episode, and for this one he had 10.
Oh, good.
So I think that does indicate the complexity sometimes of branching stories. But in terms of I mean, I enjoyed playing it because it was great to have something in Netflix that had that kind of interactivity. I know that the Minecraft story mode was in there, and also I played the Puss in Boots. Yeah, that's an interactive. So they started with the kids side. So I've already had a look at those to see what was going on, and yeah, I mean, Bandersnatch reminded me a lot of Late Shift. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of Late Shift in terms of functionality and mechanics. So I obviously don't think it hasn't been done before. It, it's just new for Netflix, as it were. But it's good that they're bringing it to that kind of to the bigger audience. And I was saying earlier today that people have mobile phones, and years ago they wouldn't say that they were gamers, but they're all playing Candy Crush. They're still not gamers, obviously, but they're happy to right. I mean, I'm just saying that to be more of a stigma, didn't there? Whereas now I think gaming's a lot more accepted. Gamer geek's worn with pride, isn't it? Really. Oh, yeah. So I think the mobile phones probably help break some of that as well, because everyone's carrying around this little handheld computer and they're playing games on it. So hopefully there is hope that the Netflix app, let's all call it what it is, it's a Netflix app. I know it's a film service you subscribe to, but it's also an app on your phone device or a web app and a browser. Hopefully they break down some of the TV viewers into gamers, because really they're delivering games inside their app. And the first kind of big experiment they've used is Bandersnatch, really. So there is hope that will do that. On the flip side, I don't know if you ever heard somebody say that golf just spoils a good walk. Yeah, you got. If you never heard that, yeah, golf spoils a good walk. So, for instance, somebody like my mum probably won't play or enjoy Bandersnatch because she wants to watch a film or a TV show, and she doesn't want to be interrupted every 30 seconds to a minute to make a choice. Yeah. So in terms of converting loads and loads of maybe people that are happy watching TV shows but maybe aren't actually gamers or have a gaming device or a PC or play traditional games, as it were, traditional computer games, I'm not sure whether it will convert them. It's definitely a good start. Part of me thought that Charlie Brooker was saying that a lot like your article, that interactive experiences are kind of predestined, and because of that they're a bit rubbish.
That's
It's a weird, because again it kept self-referencing, didn't it, about being choices and it kind of a lot of the content was focused in on interactive experiences. I know it was about releasing a computer game, but an interactive computer game. So I guess part of my takeaway is that I could feel his frustration.
Yeah, I think the favorite part of that was when we see all the breakdowns of trying to give the player free will. I said the end of my piece, the lesson here is if you're a game developer, don't try and give the player free will. You're going to go mad doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So and really that. So I mean, he said that he would like to do another one. And again, much like when we finished Dekker and said we're never doing that again, do another one. Charlie Brooker said he'd like to do another one, in a different genre probably. So I mean, I hope that it carries on and that they keep investing the money in it. But I'm painfully aware how much more expensive it is to shoot all of that extra footage, and if people aren't spending 4, 5, 6 times the amount of time they would with an episode, are they getting their value back? The producers, or the people who have commissioned it.
Oh yeah, there, and same thing with games like Her Story. I'm sure Dr. Dekker. There are people who probably played that and they may got 25-30% in and okay, I'm done, I don't need to see anything else. They will never even see any the depths of what's in those games. And same thing with Bandersnatch. For me, I try to do as many things as possible. I went for my 100% achievement trying to do that, do it. But yeah, there are people probably just watch it one time through okay, I'm done. I don't care.
Yeah, no. Well, I think again, this is one of the love-hate relationships I have with interactive fiction. Anyway, is that is that really one way through should be a good way through. Any one way through should be a good way. You should have had a great experience just playing it once.
Yeah,
you can go back obviously and try more time. But one of the things that kind of doesn't translate very well, I don't think, from Choose Your Own Adventure books is that instant death on page 2.
Yeah,
because you opened the box instead of going down the dungeon. So when you're 5 minutes in and suddenly you have to restart, they obviously, and Bandersnatch got around that, didn't it, by kind of hooking you out to the last major decision point, shall we say, which I've liked from a gamer's what are they called,
quality of life.
Exactly, yeah. So for the quality of life improvement for that, so you didn't have to do a rerun. I thought that was really cool. But at the same time, it also kind of devalued the run, because you could just go back and go again. So I don't think there's ever going to be, and this actually strangely works for Murder Mystery Party, but I don't think there's ever going to be one size fits all.
Yeah, and it's, as we said, it's very tricky to know just again, who is going to sit down and go through it all. And I think what you just said there, Tim, is a very important point about that the first run should be an amazing run. It shouldn't be as you said, oh, you play through it, but now you have to do it 6 more times to get the real ending. And it's a very important point that not just goes with adventure or interactive fiction, but even stuff we see in roguelikes. With, again, many people who develop a roguelike game will say, oh, your first run is supposed to go horribly, you're supposed to hate it, but, figure it out 30 runs in, and it's going to be the best damn game you've ever played. Oh, most people aren't going to go through it 29 more times to get to that, oh, now everything works kind of experience.
Yeah, no, I mean, I did actually say in the early days, Dekker was a roguelike FMV. Because you're beating your head on the desk trying to beat it, and then you have to go back and do it again. So if you want to find any other ending. So yeah, I felt that was a bit like a roguelike FMV. But yeah, I'd very much like to be. Again, I turn 44 next week, and there's not, I'd love to say that I could spend loads and loads of time playing interactive stuff over and over again, and if we're being honest, there isn't that much interactive movie. There aren't that many interactive movies out there, or FMVs, or whatever you want to call them. There's not that many. So there are definitely still things that can be enjoyed multiple times over. You play them again and everything else. Imagine going to your Netflix screen tonight and every single icon was interactive.
Oh god.
Yeah. Now, how many playthroughs are you going to do of? Well, I probably would play through The Good Place quite a lot, just for fun. But just, what I'm saying, when you suddenly get a screen and everything's interactive, would you think that people are going to spend more time finding all the content on that one episode, or are they just going to move on to the next one?
They're going to probably move on to the next one, especially if everybody's trying to do it, because it's just going to balloon the time for every show. Yeah.
So I mean, in terms of budget and everything, it seems almost ridiculous. But again, AAA video games, they're not cheap, are they?
Nope.
So, but they're worth doing. So perhaps maybe we'll see more interactive films, which are already kind of big budget anyway, potentially, because they're blockbusters, maybe they're serious, I don't know. But still, in a world where everything was interactive, where every show you watch today could be interactive, I know we're all thinking of our favourite shows going, that would be really cool, actually. I'm going to go and play that episode again. That Community episode with Annie when she's Santa. Yeah, no. Anyway, all these kind of different episodes, you're going to play them again. But when you've got that much choice in front of you, I think that people would play through with less, they wouldn't find 100% of all the content. So it makes it much more pressing that one single run that they're going to experience gives a valuable kind of, chunk of entertainment for the time they put in.
Definitely. And my birthday's coming up too soon as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, February 1st.
February 1st?
Yeah.
That is my birthday as well.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, we're birthday brothers. Oh my god.
There we go.
Yeah, February the 1st, yeah. So you're Aquarius too, which means you can't do any plumbing either. Is that right?
What was that?
You can't do any plumbing either.
No, not really.
I'm useless with plumbing, yeah. If I fix something, it's definitely going to leak. And I blame that on the star sign. Yeah.
There we go. There's a treat for everybody watching this live right now. Make sure to send Tim and I birthday wishes in about a week.
I'm at that age where I try and pretend it isn't happening.
Mm-hmm. I'll be getting there soon, though, I think. It's getting there.
It's obviously good. As my mum says, you either get old or you do the other thing. Mm-hmm. So you have two choices. Yeah. Get old or die. So,
oh, thank you. Yeah, there you go.
In a vacuum of choices, yeah. I think that I'll get old.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely the right choice, I think.
Mm-hmm. And I was just thinking that maybe for the future we'll do like a choose your own adventure for live streaming for these casts. You know, let the audience decide how things go. That would be too much work. They'll love it, and we'll all just like collapse. We'll have a good 5 to 10 mental breakdowns trying to film it all.
Well, you have touched on what I was talking to you about before the show started, the Dekker Live thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if you got time to talk about that.
Yeah, I figure. Yeah, let's move on then. I guess for the people watching us live right now, this will be kind of our last call for questions for Tim. So, if you have anything regarding FMV style games, writing, Dekker, Shapeshifter, whatever, please get them in now. Because when we're done talking, News Shark saying there's another choice where you ignore your age and act younger. There we go. We'll pretend we're like 25. No one will notice.
That just reminded Paul Stanley in a video I watched. He said you're only as young as women feel, which I think is very wrong. But yeah,
yeah.
Let's say you can grow old, but pretend you're younger. Yeah.
But again, this will be last call for questions if you have any, because when we're done talking about Dekker Live, that will be kind of our stop for tonight. So I would say maybe another 15-20 minutes, 10 to 15. We'll see how things go. But as you just said, Tim, you are currently working on another crazy FMV style idea. So for the folks watching us either live or recorded, what are you planning with Dekker Live?
Dekker Live is going to be a patient a new patient from in the Infectious Madness of Dr universe, and it's set before he dies. So it's set before the death of Dr. Dekker, and what we're going to do is that patient's going to be live on the couch, streaming live, and the audience are going to be the psychiatrist, and they're going to be able to type questions to the patient.
Ooh, boy. My mind is just like thinking like, oh my god, how are you going to do this?
Right. See, so when I read your article and it was about the illusion of choice and everything, I said to Linda, so how do we break this illusion of choice? That, how do we make it so you have choice? And we went, okay, what if we didn't tell you what you could say? I mean, it seems pretty basic, yeah? Mm-hmm. So instead of already having responses to what you're going to say, let's just it's not entirely improvised. We have ideas, and we do have some structure, but it doesn't really matter whether it gets hit or not. The important thing is of this particular experiment is that the audience has complete freedom of choice. Obviously after we've edited out all the rude stuff.
Of course, yeah. That's going to be very important there. So
yeah,
I guess two questions from that. I guess the first one, two statements. Like the first thing, as you said, like it does get around that issue, the fact that it is about creating a interesting first experience, because however the audience is going to respond, that's going to create that thing. Like you don't have to worry about saying, what if somebody doesn't ask X? The whole thing falls apart. That's not going to be a problem, because again, it's whatever the questions that are going to come up are going to create this experience.
Yes. Well, I mean, the actor will have to improvise to a certain extent, but there'll obviously be biographies and things that there'll be reference material already in place. And what we're a lot of Dekker is, I'm not going to say it's signposted, but if we were playing Dekker now and I was your patient, and I come and saw you and I said, Doctor, I'm scared of frogs. Yeah? Now your next question hopefully won't be, do I like fish and chips? It might be. And live I could say, yes, I do, but there's quite a lot of fat in them from the chip shop, so I just do them, the oven ones on my own. But again, I can respond to you, anything you say. You might not want to talk about the frogs I'm scared of, but you probably should, because that's why I'm here. But you don't have to. Yeah, we can do a whole 60 minutes of, what's my favourite colour, and that's absolutely fine as well. Because it's an experiment. But do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. So there's ways and ways. So there definitely will be some kind of scripted storylines that you could choose to follow, that we've thought that maybe you would follow. So not scripted like they're going to read out exactly from a script, but things that we think that you might uncover in the session, and we're prepared for it. And then there'll be a whole load of stuff that we're not actually prepared for. And on top of that, we're probably going to be running the background images of the patient on the couch, which is quite a big hit from Dekker, the screensaver. So we'll probably, with whoever the new patient is, record some of those. And what we'll possibly drop to that, and we will be live. Obviously, Linda and I will be there as well as the filming takes place, and we're actually going to drop writing hints to the actor whilst it takes place. So we want to try and we get a lot of people enjoy Dekker and the twisted way in which we wrote it, and all the patients and their various kind of problems. And we obviously have core problems that we've already thought of, and we like to keep that going. And should the actor kind of freeze up or have trouble or be worried about responding or whatever, we'll be there live to actually help with responses. So we will be able to, we will feed them scripted lines, not scripted lines, but we'll feed them general ideas about what they should say. And you might be seeing some Tommans at that point, because I've just responded something to you. So we've already demoed it internally. We've already had a go just here. And it's pretty fun. I've got to say, it's pretty fun. I mean, obviously, there'd be loads of people bundled in, potentially saying things in the chat room, trying to get their question heard or read or whatever. But we thought it was a lot of fun, just as it was, and having we'd aim for 60 minutes. It could obviously run on for hours, but we're saying a minimum. We're pitching it for 60 minutes, and then you get to spend that whole time with the patient. We haven't approached any of the old Dekker cast yet about bringing anyone back to do anything. We kind of obviously, they may be too expensive for because we won't be, we can't really, we think we'll be doing it for free, so people can just turn up, and so I'm not sure how much money we'll be able to put into it. But it's also, we were thinking of like people like Ashlyn. We could potentially have Ashlyn back as Mariana, and people have seen her as Mariana already, and although we don't want to break it, we thought it'd be quite funny, because we've said it pre-Dekker, so you get people in the chat room and they start talking about going to the bottom of the sea and all this stuff, and Mariana could say, that's a good idea, I've never thought of that. Because we're pre-Dekker, it's like, oh my god, I just gave Mariana the idea for Dekker, oh, what have I done, god. So we could frame it, we could make it work, I think, but overall, because it's like this whole new kind of experiment, Dekker Live, that we just get a brand new patient with a brand new weirdness for people to play with.
And that's one of the things I liked about your writing with Dekker and Shapeshifting, that there's always that, like, it always gets framed like it's being like this like normal or everyday occurrence. like with these characters, like everyone kind of just accepts it without being like these like massive shocking revelations. Like, oh, I can. What was it? One of the characters like, oh, he gets an extra hour, and like,
Yeah.
and it just kind of sort of like, what would you do with that extra hour? Like, it's like, yeah, that sounds pretty cool. I would like that. I could actually use a few extra hours myself with all the stuff I'm trying to get done.
Yeah, well, again, we've already got the Dekker patient lined up in terms of the character. We've already specced out something. We've got the ailment. Like I said, we've already tested it in-house. It seems like it will be really good fun. We just we haven't officially announced anything yet because we've got a few more internal projects that we're doing that we need to finish for the murder mystery stuff, and then we'll be able to. I'm sure we'll then officially announce it, and we'll put out a casting call probably to find the first ever Dekker live patient. I mean, if it works, there's not much we can do about it because we're not really sure how to monetize it, but it'd be cool.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we can do it again, but it'll be fun. We can at least have one go at it. But yeah, so hopefully we'll get some Dekker fans and other people turning up to see. But essentially, yeah, I guess it comes from your article about this illusion of choice, and we thought, how can we not make it an illusion? How can we make it actual choice? So just let people type in.
Yeah, I mean, what you just said a few minutes ago about like asking what your favorite color is. Now that you put that thought out there, that's what's going to happen. I can just see it now. Like you'll write an entire script, all these things, and it'll just be 60 minutes up. So you like the color green? Well, why do you like the color green? Do you like dark green or light green?
Yeah, and again, you know, I would not care about that at all. That would be awesome. I mean, people have these kind of collaborative stories, don't they? Like a role-playing game where you each write a bit and you write the next bit, and essentially it's a bit like that. It's just we felt that a lot of the strain would obviously be taken by the actor if they're having to respond to this. So if we start talking about colours, then, you know, what's my favourite colour? It's black. And then if we're going to keep talking about colours, then we might have to start thinking, yeah, it's because I actually don't see any colour. Okay, everything's black and white. Yeah, everything's black and white. And where can we take that? See what I mean? Let's get a bit creepy with it. Let's move with it. So, yeah, I guess it's a bit of mental sparring live.
So, like, no matter what happens, we're going to have to try and find somebody to make it cool and weird, as we said earlier.
Absolutely, yeah. You don't want just a chat session where where it just gets ridiculous. And even if it gets ridiculous in chat, we can shield the actor from that. We could potentially. We've talked about running internal chat system, so we may well copy and paste the best from the chat room into an internal chat system. Yeah, because depending on how many people are there, it might just get too frantic to moderate. And if we've got somebody and somebody's being really rude or being really silly, trying to break their composure. Do you see what I mean? They need to stay in character for the whole thing. We might have to shield it, but I don't know.
Yeah, and that's just what I was thinking about. I think question in chat, Newshar was saying something similar as well. Like, are you planning on this being like completely live? As in, will there be like a broadcaster delay, like for you to like get the questions, or like is it somebody going to be seeing things like the second they're being typed?
Yeah, well, again, it depends whether I think we'll probably have the chat room live available to the actors to begin with, but if we can't keep up with moderating it, or it gets a bit tight in there, we'll have a fallback system. Like, for example, we could be in a Google Hangout together or whatever internally here, and if it gets a bit choice in the chat room, we might start cutting and pasting things. But at the end of the day, if there's a lot of questions that come through, the actor has to respond. You need to give them time to respond. So they might have been talking about the colour black for kind of 30 seconds, and then they've missed all of the questions that have gone in there anyway. Meanwhile, myself or Linda, we've picked that up and we've chucked that into, somebody had a really good question and we've stuck that into our kind of Hangouts chat. Yeah, but I mean, we don't want to write the questions. That would be against what we're trying to do. We definitely want the audience to participate for sure, and for the actors to respond to it.
And that was like my other point. Like, are you going to like kind of like limit the audience, say that maybe like 50 people can show up, or it's like can like anybody and everyone kind of watch and pose questions?
I think because we're not charging, it's going to be the second one. Yeah, anybody can turn up, because we actually did. We actually started. We bare bones a Kickstarter, is the truth, and we were looking at ways, and we think, well, maybe we could charge a small ticket fee for people to be one of these, like somebody's just there, 50 people that can type, so that it's like an experience which is walled garden, and you just get that, and maybe we could do multiple performances on the same day. Yeah, because we don't know how it's going to finish up.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking too, like about that. Like again, like me having like a small ticket price, and then like everyone, and then kind of like your or that group's experience basically becomes like that episode, and then like another 50 or another 100, they have their own episode, and
absolutely, and it could go in different way, and they might be the group that talks about the price of bread or whatever it's going to be in that group, and there's a completely different experience there. So. Yeah, and that's why I think in a way we want to kind of we want to do it because we think FMV is cool, and we'd like to put the flag in the sand, as it were, and say, yay, interactive live FMV, let's do it. We want to try and be the first to do that, but it would be nice if it worked and everybody enjoyed it and thing to do, to be able to make it pay for itself.
Yeah,
so that we could do it. That could be something that goes on for a long time. And something like Dr. Dekker is obviously awesome for this kind of thing, because we've got a patient, they've got this particular ailment, and that's this week. Next week, new patient, new ailment, new problems.
Yep.
Or it's serial. You can serialize it.
Yep, and new audience as well, and again, new experience.
And also, I suppose what we're saying is that second patient is going to perhaps be more attractive to the people who have been in the first one, whereas essentially there's still millions of people. I'm sure that the reach of it would be more like hundreds or thousands, but a few thousand people that might want to ever play this kind of thing, but they could obviously just keep running off the first actor over and over again, because if you just do a closed show for kind of 50 people, then you could keep running it over and over.
Yep.
Just on the first actor to get through. But in terms of pricing and everything else, we were looking at it and we thought it's not really going to raise, it's going to just about maybe pay for the actor. Yeah. So,
unless of course you get enough to like do like multiple like runs or stuff like that,
which is what we were saying, that we could potentially do multiple shows and everything else. But I think what we need to do is we can do one live show and throw it open. Probably we've not set anything in stone, so we might go to a closed format. We might invite fans and press to the first one, like a beta test. Possibly, and do like a proof of concept in that way. But I think because it's more of a publicity stunt. It's more marketing, isn't it? We want to see if this works, if it's cool, if people like it. Then it's more likely that we'll just throw it open to as wide audience as possible. But it's FMV, and I know that there's a really cool dedicated fan base to FMV, but it's not Bandersnatch type figures. I don't think we're going to kill YouTube or Twitch or whatever. If we make it in triple figures, I'll be happy. For Dekker Live, as it were.
And as a New Shark said, this is sounding less like a game, more like a Q&A live stream with paid actors and a theme.
Like a what, sorry?
A Q&A live stream.
Well, it's no, because it's got a narrative. Yeah, it has a narrative we've already created, and as we as I explained before, whether or not you want to follow it is up to you. Obviously, we've got 50 people in the chat room, and I've just said, I'm scared of frogs. If somebody asks about frogs, we're probably going to try and get the actor to respond to that. To drive the narrative forward. But again, illusion of choice. Yeah, if we only go down the path that we already designed, and we also said about the live scripting, as it were. We've got, as the writers, we're there potentially feeding the actor responses to things we never even thought would come up, but it's still narrated.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still got still can have a strong narrative. So it's an interesting test for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Now, for people watching this right now, again, for the record people watching this, we are doing this just at the tail end of January, and I guess, do you have like any tentative time for trying this out, or is it still too early?
We'd like to do it as soon as possible, because it's one of those things that now I've talked about it, there'll be 6 of these next week.
Yep.
So we would like to get it out and kind of test Dekker with it, but I think that we said the earliest we could do it is probably March.
Okay.
So after we finish doing what we need to do in-house at the moment, which should take us probably into next week, you'll know when it's going to start happening, because the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put out the press release and the casting call and everything else. So that should happen in the next week or two, I would imagine, because we're going to need to give ourselves probably a month before the show, so that we can cast, get the right person, actually get them down here, do some role play with them, do some ad lib, see if see if they can take the stress, throw all the rude word chat room, see if it breaks them. The usual stuff, the usual fun you have at work in the office. So possibly as soon as March. Yeah. We'd like to do it while it's still dark outside for reasons of budget and lighting.
Yep. All right.
I just did it more, but yeah.
Okay, so what you're saying is I need to prepare my audition reel very soon. I need to prepare. There we go.
That's only if you're going to be in the around the time, because it'll be cheaper to ship you out than the couch.
Oh. Okay.
But it will be the same set as Dekker. We might make a few changes to it, but yeah, it's definitely be the same couch and everything. And also we'll be shooting on the same camera. We've still got the GH4 that we shot Dekker on, so we're going to try and make it look as much like Dekker. There will be some pre-recorded stuff, so obviously things like the Tommans with them sit on the couch and get up and will be pre-recorded, and we may pre-record an intro, we may pre-record some endings, I don't know. We're talking about some of that stuff to make some cool weird stuff happen during the live stream. It's supposed to be live, but I've probably said too much, but it's going to be cool. We wouldn't bother doing it if we're not doing it for money. What are we doing it for?
Yeah, to make
it
it cool and
needs to be
weird.
fun and cool. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
That's what you describe these podcasts as: game wisdom, cool and weird talks about game design. There we go. That'll be the next tagline. Besides examine the art and science of games, a cool, weird discussion.
I'm taking this as like your normal chat, is it? You obviously have much more serious people on.
We do get some of the people who joke around. We got a lot of weird discussions that always happen.
Hopefully it's not too weird, but Diavecchi Studios, they make Dr. Dekker and Shapeshift, so it's going to be a bit weird.
Mm-hmm. Now, one thing I want to ask that someone was talking about, and I think it's actually it's kind of a tangent, but I think it kind of applies here, has to the recent talks about like the EU restricting like people from viewing content or broadcasting without the original creator's consent. And the reason why I thought it was kind of relevant for what you do, Tim, is that there's always been this very interesting idea about like let's play and stuff for adventure style games, and the fact that again, as traditional adventure games again are one and done. Like if you watch someone play like a 30-minute adventure game or an hour-long one, you never have to see that again or buy that game because you've seen all the endings. And
yeah.
I just want to get your thoughts. Again, this question is probably too big to answer fully right now. But again, as someone who does like adventure style or FMV style games, like What do you think about like the Let's Plays, or again about restricting people from showing or broadcasting this kind of stuff?
For us, I mean, for us personally, then we're more than happy for people to show our games. It's absolutely fine. I don't. I'm not completely familiar with it. It's going to be a law that is just in place, and then you have to ask for permission. Presumably, the reverse is that the initial standard point is that you don't have permission to stream this person's video.
I don't know the specifics, to be honest with you. I've only heard a few people talk about that, having to do with something about, again, like if somebody wants to watch footage of a game in the EU, that either they have to get a specific permission or that they can't see that content.
Sorry, that's about Let's Play people playing the games live. Yeah. I mean, I guess it'll be on a studio by studio basis. I mean, it's possibly on the back of things like GDPR as it's come in, and which are they're in place automatically, so that the people have the right for their data protection and stuff over here. So it's possibly a bit like that. It's just extended to like the copyright laws. I know this is Article 13. There's a big thing on copyright laws, which is interesting because we just had our first ever court case to do with copyright after 15 years, and we never thought we'd have one. Never thought we'd have one, but sadly, somebody copied thousands and literally thousands of words from one of our murder mysteries and then printed it and sold it as his own. We couldn't let it lie. And we didn't go straight to court. That was like the very final option. But yeah, he was very, very unreasonable for many months, and in the end we just had to do that. But yeah, I mean, copyright laws obviously is quite a big thing for people that make art and photographers getting their things used by Getty without permission, all this stuff. So as in terms of video, I get that for narratives it's potentially harmful. Potentially, I don't really have any figures for it. I know that people like Jesse Cox obviously played our games, and he managed to get quite a few 100,000 views and things. And as I said, recently in an interview, that Dekker and Shapeshift combined sales probably is coming up on all platforms to be around 50,000 units. The impact on the amount of sales we shoulda, coulda, woulda, maybe had millions of people not combined from all the videos seen those games. You want stuff to be seen, really. We want people to enjoy our work. We don't really want to hide it away, and obviously we still want to be able to live. I mean, as it stands, we actually we mainly live off the murder mystery games, the other box games. So the FMVs don't potentially make enough really to keep us going. They'd be too risky. It'd be far too risky if we had nothing else to do. Yeah, because you wouldn't know whether you're going to 3 units or 50,000, whatever it's going to be. But yeah, I think with things like Dekker, people wanted to ask their own thing anyway. So unless you're watching a completely green playthrough, you've always got things that you want to see. And again, even looking at feedback on things like Shapeshift, people were they were actually. I was looking at one of Jesse Cox's one, and they were kind of screaming at him in the comments about he picked the wrong choice and he should have done this. And again, you're not going to see that, are you? Unless you buy the game yourself and you do it yourself. And again, in Dekker there are choices, so it wasn't. I'm not sure it's too bad, and obviously the gain that you get from people seeing the brand or actually knowing about it is probably much more advantageous than not having people stream it. But I mean, we'd be lost without people with 50 viewers watching our games. We love all the indies streaming our games and things, all the indie streamers, and had several of them do voiceovers in Shift. So when we were doing the picking people to do voiceovers in Shapeshift, we said we see no follower count. That's what we want to be. We see no follower count. You can have you can have 1 million followers, you can have 100 followers. You know, if you've enjoyed our games and you've supported us and everything else, come in, do some stuff. So
I'm right here, Tim. I'm right here. I'm trying to begin my acting career on top of books and presentations and writing. There we go.
That's good. That's good to know that. That somebody wants to do it. It's good. But yeah, so I mean, to wrap it up, I think it's obviously it'd be bad if people are worried about streaming these things. We still do get a couple of people ask for permission, even before this happened. So, and by a couple, I literally mean like 2 or 3 in the last year or so. Nobody else has asked us permission to stream it. Any of our, either of the games, and we wouldn't. This is the day and age, isn't it? Maybe I suppose 10 years ago it would have been a bit weirder, and people were a bit more kind of cagey about it. But now we've got massive content creator personalities who stream these things, and it's normally seen as a big asset if they get behind your game. So, in fact, they ask you to pay for it. I mean, we've never approached anyone who's asked us or responded to one of our emails, but I saw on Wow's Interactive stream, it's Ben Tester, the PR guy there, saying that somebody had asked for a lot of money to play one of their games. So it's actually it's the reverse. It seems to be the economics of it. But again, like you said, you're talking about adventures, adventure games and narrative games that perhaps you don't have to see. We had exactly this conversation with our 10-year-old just a few hours ago about streaming content and whether or not people should be able to stream video games. And we said, do you remember that Broken Age? And she went, yeah. I said, yeah. And remember that you watched the whole thing, that you watched Stampy play that? She went, yeah. I said, you don't want to play that anymore, do you? No. Okay. I mean, we've got it. It looks like a good game. I never watched Stampy Cat's playthrough, but we're not allowed to play it because she's already seen it.
I just love that, like, your whole family has like these game design discussions. Like you said earlier, like for your wedding anniversary, you wrote a screen, and then the whole family just has a discussion about game design.
Yeah, well, it was interesting because we were trying to point out that some people would see it negatively because they're not going to buy the product potentially, and then when we framed it way that she'd understand that she'd seen Broken Age being played by Stampy, that she wouldn't buy or play that game. She went, yeah, no, I wouldn't, because we've already seen it. Exactly. That's what this man here is saying, that can happen. So yeah, there's no stats for it, are there?
I don't think so.
There's no stats. Nobody can say how many didn't have. You'd have to have one of those kind of at the end of a video, give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you're still going to buy this game. Thumbs up if you're going to buy it, thumbs down if you're not going to buy it. But there's no real kind of I don't know. And I think even if people were to say that they didn't buy the game because they watched the stream, there's a lot of people out there. Then they can't all be watching the streams, can they?
No. A few quick questions from chat, and then I'll ask you for your final thoughts, Tim, and we'll wrap it up for this evening.
Cool.
So one of the questions I was asked by Mike here, and there's been recent talks about there being a push for a game developers union. I know there's been talks in the EU about it. Does that have any effect on Dekker at all?
I doubt it. Only as much as it's just Dekker Studios is literally Tim Cowles, Linda Cowles' husband and wife. Direct, so we both own the same amount of shares in the company. It's one of those things where I can go into work and fire myself, or
that'd be another really great wedding anniversary gift.
Yeah. But now you brought it up, it'd be like, I'm in a union now. You can't make me write during our wedding anniversary. So, yeah, possibly. I don't know, maybe more likely to have a divorce than anything else. But yeah, no. But I understand in principle, yeah. And again, it won't affect us. But if this is kicked off is this because of the is it Telltale or there was somebody that was pushing their workforce to work too many hours, wasn't it?
Rockstar, I think, was doing that.
Rockstar, sorry, yeah. And it's, you know, if employees are being abused in any way, then they need to fix it. You know, it shouldn't be. You know, as much as you read out Amazon delivery, you know, drivers, you know, being not too low pay and everything else, systems need to be in place, and we need to protect everybody, or there won't be any video games, will there?
Yep.
You know, because well, there will be. It'll just be all us indies, mate. Still putting in those 100 hours. No, I mean, it can't be that good for anybody, can it?
Yeah,
you know, I'm immediately thinking of doctors here. Yeah, next time you go in for your appendicitis, let's hope that doctor hasn't just pulled 100-hour a week, because they might not be doing their best work when they get to you. So I mean, yeah, but I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of the specific legislation there, in terms of what the, you know, as in, I'm saying I don't know what the counter argument to it is, that it's going to make it tougher for AAA video games to happen, or make them more expensive, or whatever. I'm pretty sure we probably shouldn't really care that much about if they're going to be more expensive, because they're already quite expensive anyway. But if they're more expensive because we were literally killing people to get them cheaper, we should probably just pay a bit more. I mean, I don't know.
And yeah, I think 2019 is going to be a very interesting year, especially like the whole digital store like war we're seeing right now between Epic, Valve, and even Discord right now is doing their own store, among others. So it's definitely going to be a very interesting year, I think, for how video games are being designed or even being sold.
Yeah, well, I mean, Steam's still, you know, the biggest outlet, isn't it? So, I don't know about you, but I've got Twitch Prime installed, you know, the Twitch app, and I've recently installed the Epic Game Store. So I mean, which is exactly what they wanted, to get numbers on, and I love what they're doing. In principle, and they're trying to support the developers and everything else, and it's great. Competition normally lowers prices and all this stuff, doesn't it? But I'm the kind of guy that buys the download because I can't be bothered to put the disc in all the time. Right? Yeah. So especially for consoles, I'm like, oh my god, I've got to put the disc in. I've got to go and change it, and you know, the download comes up, so I sell the physical copy and then just play the download. But so in terms of switching between stores to get the best prices or whatever, I don't know. I mean, one of the things that I like about Steam is that I've got 500 odd games already there.
I have a lot more than that.
Do you? Well, but it's like one of the things where it's difficult to migrate from iTunes if you've got loads of content there. Yep. Yeah, if you've bought loads of albums, all that kind of thing. So it's going to be tough. I'd be very surprised if Epic had more sales than Steam by the end of the year.
Yeah. And we're still in January, so there's still a whole lot more time left in this year to see what happens.
Yeah. But I mean, why this should work in principle, it should have already worked for places like GOG, yeah? Yeah. And they're DRM free, so.
Yeah, we shall see on that front. One last question from chat, and then we'll start wrapping it up. Mike was saying you have a nice voice. Like, have you done any like characters in any of your games yet?
Oh dear! Wow, nobody's ever said that. Oh, I'm going to get a CV from Mike next, aren't I, to be in our next video game? Yeah, I have actually. Not in yeah. Actually, in Shapeshift, there is a bit where you telephone the tarot line, and that might be me. That actually definitely is me. And that was performed during the edit when I realised we hadn't captured that as voiceover, so I had to do that pretty quickly. And for some of our murder mystery games, our earlier ones, I think there's a couple that I did voices because they were just audio CDs with And Linda's done some as well.
Nice.
You know, because we started off with no sales of those games as well. So everything, there was a limited budget. But nowadays, even for the murder mystery games, we try and get people. For the last few years, we've actually had actors and voiceover artists do the murder mystery games. And even John Guyler from Contradiction,
Nice.
he did a whole load of voiceover stuff for us. So it's nice to get. It's nice if you can get the actors to do it. I mean, Linda has a drama A level from school, so she did that in school, and I mean, I dabbled with it. I played Nathan Detroit in Guys and Dolls for when I was a bit, when I was 18. Did a few nights of that, so always kind of been interested in it. But I totally respect the amount of time and effort that the actors put into to getting a credible performance, really. And I'm probably not dedicated enough to do it. But again, when we started Dekker, our neighbour across the road said, "Why are you hiring actors?" Because we need actors for a video game. It's like, I don't know. If you need to build a house, why are you hiring builders?
Yeah, just do it yourself.
Just do it, yeah. I think she was saying that she could do it. But yeah, so I mean, because actors have skills.
Yeah. All right, but it is. I think. Are we going on? Yeah, we just passed the 2-hour mark, and I think it's just happened with the last cast too. We said we're only going for like 40 minutes, and then it's like an hour and a half later. But
that's totally my fault.
No, that's all right.
I can't stop.
But I think we will begin to wrap it up here. So, for people watching us right now, live or recorded, again, you can check out the Shapeshifting Detective and the Infectious Madness of Dr. Dekker on Steam. Are they both available on console now?
Yep, they're both available on Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch, and Steam. Yeah, okay. and Humble Store, I think, as well. Certainly Dekker is. I don't know if WoW's got it onto that, but
okay.
And check out our Twitter is the best place to find us.
Okay, and I was just about to get to that. Before we do that, do you have any final thoughts on Dekker Live, shapeshifting, FMV style games, anything like that, Tim?
Just that I know personally, I've had quite a few people kind of approach me saying that they are making their own FMV games, or they want to make them, and they're trying to make them everything else. And I wish them all the best of luck. I'd like to see them and play them, and hope that we can keep FMV or whatever you want to call it, interactive films, interactive movies, just keep them alive and kicking, and keep trying to push the envelope and keep letting players have fun.
All right. And I guess with that, we will wrap things up here. So, for you, Tim, and for Diavecchi, where are some of the best places for people to follow you on social media?
Twitter is the place out the most. We have Instagram and Facebook, but Twitter's best. And on Twitter, it's at Diavecchi, which has an apostrophe, but you can't have them on Twitter. So basically, it's at DAVEKKI, or as some of our actors call us, Dave KKI. That's the company. So that's the best place to catch us. Me personally, I'm Let's Fix It in Post, because that's pretty much what you hear me say most of the time on a film set.
All right. All right, Tim. Well, I think we will say goodnight. Again, congratulations with Shapeshifting Detective, and definitely best of luck with Dekker Live. It sounds like it's going to be a very interesting experience for everyone involved.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
All right. So for everybody watching this live or recorded, we are going to end things here. If you're enjoying this record and would like an ad-free version of this video, be sure to check out patreon.com/GWBlazer to get VIP access. And I'll be back later tonight for our regular game stream. So again, Tim, thank you so much for coming on. Best of luck with everything, and I'm sure we'll talk again in the future if you didn't go insane from doing Dekker Live.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, make sure you turn up for that.
Alright folks, that is going to do it. So be sure to come back for daily discussions on game design here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games, or we just have cool and weird talks about video games. We'll I have to try that as our next catchphrase in the future. All right, everyone. Until next time, have a great night, and be sure to check out the Shapeshifting Detective and the Infectious Madness of Dr. Dekker. But that's it. Have a good night, and I'll see you all next time.